Hello, this is Dread from Apprentice's Corner, and today's video topic is going to be about patch 7.11. I have the first official build guide for the patch. This is going to be a Blade-Dancer Rogue. Yes, Rogue has been released, at least 2 out of 3 of the masteries, the Blade-Dancer Mastery and the Marksman's Mastery. The Blade-Dancer is obviously focused on daggers and dual wielding and such, while the Marksman is more focused on projectiles. But I was planning on playing a marksman, but one skill really caught my eye, and the skill was Shuriken. Now, Shuriken normally is kind of like EK, like Ethereal Knives from Path of Exile, where it kind of shoots in front of you, correct? Like a cone, like, knives. It's a throwing attack, right? But there's a node inside of Shuriken that allows you to shoot the knives out kind of like in an AoE per se, like a Nova around you, which pretty much allows you to play a really fast mapping slash, kind of like mapping and arena character, pretty solid overall thanks to the gigantic amount of AoE. And it is actually screen wide AoE because of the way that the little projectiles home, and you also have more projectiles thanks to the shadow system, which is pretty much just echoes but for Blade-Dancer, and it allows you to have extra shots of your shuriken, which will make your clear speed even that much better. And it is, yes, 100% like full screen AoE technically because of the way it is. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't work like this because there's a lot of mobs on the screen and there's not as many projectiles, but each projectile like pierces 100% of the time. So they pretty much get where where it's supposed to go. Now, the biggest issue I had with the build was I was running Puncture for single target. Now, Puncture is a very strong skill, at least for the bow variant. Now, the melee variant, it is also like strong, like damage wise, like it has a lot of DPS, but it is not suited towards the arena playstyle, as to deal that damage, you have to be sitting there and spamming, obviously spamming Puncture. But you don't want to be doing that in arena, you want to keep moving. So we actually ended up subbing out Puncture for I think it's Mirage. Yeah, Mirage Warriors or whatever it's called. It's like Deadly Mirage or something. Pretty much, it's like a flicker strike for single target. So you become immune for a few seconds while you attack the enemy, kind of like the Mercenary from Risk Arena 2, if you know about that as well. And it allows us to put a lot of bleeds on the opponent, and as well, it allows us to get out of a lot of sticky situations, as the immunity frames that we have while we're, obviously going into the form, it allows us to simply wait for our other cooldowns to come through, pretty much kind of like Snap Freeze. Now, the build overall, I'm pretty proud of it considering I knew nothing about the patch beforehand. I had no prior knowledge. I'm not a community tester or anything. I wouldn't have known anything. So pretty much, baby's first rogue build. It's going really well considering. It does have a little bit of an issue in arena. I noticed it is a little squishy, but obviously that's just rogue in general, I think, and I'm just not used to playing squishy builds, and this one's a little bit more squishier than my liking, but that doesn't mean it's not a good build. It is a very strong build and very strong for monolith running, as it is faster than your stereotypical, usual mono runner, as the rogue does really well at, is moving fast, or, obviously moving fast or dodging fast or whatever. The damage is kind of okay. It could be a little bit better, but obviously this is a level 70 character in SSF, as I level all of my builds in SSF, so I do not have access to certain things that would make my life a little bit easier. So mainly this is just from table scraps of what I've been able to, accomplish ever since the patch came through. I actually had to download the Steam version because the standalone was not working at the time, which kind of sucked, so I Even if I wanted to play standard, I couldn't have because I had to make a new character as there was no stash or, obviously characters because I did not back up my cloud save because I never thought I would ever be booting up the Steam version ever again. So I ended up playing SSF, which is okay, which I'm proud of because it allowed me to prove that this build can function in an SSF environment. The footage in the background is level 100 Monoliths. Obviously, this is a level 70 character, so take that as you will. The highest arena wave we got to was like 120. The biggest issue right now is the arena waves are kind of fucked up right now on the website, so I can't really obviously we can't really test or whatever, but we can still grind. With that being said, let's get into the leveling process, shall we? All right, so for the leveling process, it's actually very, very simple. You are going to run Flurry until you have the ability to grab shurikens. Now your base shuriken is going to fire like 3 shurikens in a cone, kind of like in a cone, right? Now, obviously you just run this and then you're going to specialize it first. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take 1 point into the weighted projectiles, 1 point into deep cuts, 1 point into fan of blades, and then 1 point into throwing star. And what this allows you to do is make it so that your projectiles are in an AoE around you and allows you to, pretty much clean up town. And it proved very efficient at, leveling, as you could just kind of run through zones and bam, 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 right? For some reason, I don't know why, but they tended to kind of buff the early game of like dot builds when it comes to these kind of builds, thanks to how much just dot there is overall. You can use other skills, like for instance, where is it? Acid Flask. Acid Flask is a very strong skill to level with as well. You could either use this or Shuriken to level, but I use Shuriken myself. And then after that, what you want to do is you want to grab more projectiles, then you want to grab the 100% pierce chance, and then go down here for the mana cost, as we are running mana cost rings here. Be on the lookout for those so that we can bring our shuriken to 0 mana, which is very important. That's pretty much it for the leveling guide overall. But when we choose Blade Dancer in the end of time, we will get access to an extra shadow, and what that allows us to do is to run our shift, which you'll get later. And the way you will specialize this is 2 points here, 2 points here, so that you get some mana gain back on use. And then you want all 3 points into this, as the momentum is very strong for movement speed. A lot of movement speed makes your leveling process go that much faster. And then we have the shadow created after shapeshifting. Now, a lot of you guys might not know how shadows work because Rogue is a new mechanic. So shadows, the way they work is they are summoned by some of your skills. Now, the only skills that can summon them right now is Shift, Synchronized Strike, I believe, where is it? Smoke Bomb can summon them, and I think that's it so far. I think maybe Dark Quiver can summon them. I think, yeah, I think it can summon one. Yeah, right here. Yeah, Shadow on pickup. There you go. Yeah, Shadow on pickup. There. Yeah, so that's all your shadows. Now you have an ability to create a shadow. Now it's just a shadow of you, right? And then whenever you use a, where is it? Shadow Cascade, Acid Flask, or Shurikens, I believe that's all, right? I believe that's all. Yeah, Shurikens, Shadows, Cascade, and Acid Flask. They will repeat the skill for you. Now, for instance, pretend I'm running through the map. Bam. There's my shadow. I click the Shuriken button. It copies what I'm doing. That's very strong for early game clear. Makes it feel so much better, so much buttery smooth. It makes Blade Dancer almost on par with Glacier mage leveling, which is amazing, in fact. Now, that's pretty much all you need to level from 1 to 100. Obviously, you want stuff like Synchronized Strike eventually, where you summon more, obviously, and stuff like that. But these are the basics, and then you can just throw in whatever you want until you get to maps and stuff, and then you'll probably want to start picking up these Synchronized Strike, the Smoke Bomb, and the Lethal Mirage. Now, that's pretty much it for leveling overall. Just look for a good two-hander with a good amount of damage over time affixes to it, just to give yourself a little bit of a boost up until the point where you believe you're ready to go dual wielding, which, by the way, you should be very cautious in taking this node, as it does make you take more damage. But trust me, the damage you get is worth it overall in the end, especially in Monolith. Now, for leveling on the actual tree itself, we're going to go through the passive tree this time, ironically, and we're going to go through the order of which I would choose the skills. Now, obviously, the first 8 things we want are the Swift Assassin, as attack speed is key in the early game, all 8 points of these. And then we want all 8 points into Steady Hand. We're going to skip Twin Blade for a little bit. Then we're going to get 5 points into Dodge and Parry, get the Glancing Blow chance, as Glancing Blow has been changed to only reduce 35% of the damage, but it has been given a lot more to Rogue, and specifically, there's a lot more Glancing Blow for Rogue specifically. Now, there's also these nodes which you can grab later after you grab dual wielding. I'm about to fill in agility. This is very useful while leveling, as it gives you haste while you're running around and killing things. And this is very important, sapping strikes. Now, when you use a skill that costs 0 mana and hit an enemy, you regain health and mana. Why this is very important is because our skills are very mana intensive. They will use a form of mana. Now, how we're doing this is we're bringing Shuriken, since it is a throwing attack, we can bring it down to we can bring it pretty much down to 0 cost by utilizing those 3 nodes in the tree, and 2 -3 mana costs on the rings, which allows us to gain mana back as we're hitting things with Shuriken, which is absolutely amazing for us because it gives us all the mana sustain we could ever possibly need. And since Shurikens is at 0 mana, it doesn't matter how much you spam your abilities here, as I'll show you. Doesn't matter, we can always use Shuriken, which is always a nice quality of life. That's pretty much it for that. Obviously, you want to pick these up later. You want to pick up agility, obviously. And then we're going to move on to Blade Dancer. Now, Blade Dancer, we want Cloak of Shadows because dexterity and glancing blow specifically is very strong for you. We can skip this node for now. I'm trying to find a specific way to build this later on. This is very important. Shroud of Dusk. Shroud of Dusk is one of the strongest nodes in the entire game now. Pretty much what it reads is you gain 50 dodge and 5% chance to receive a glancing blow on a stack whenever you get hit. So you get a 32% chance when you get hit to gain a stack of Dusk Shroud. It gives you a lot of flat dodge in the early game and a lot of glancing blow, and it's very strong in the late game as well. This is going to be a staple for most rogue builds looking until it probably gets nerfed. Now, you can ignore these for later. We're going to run Scarlet Stream so that we get our melee bleed chance and throwing bleed chance. Yes, we do have some melee skills in the rotation here, i.e. that. And then obviously we have the shift, and then we have the lethal Mirage as an attack as well. So getting the stuff that works for both of our skills is a lot better. I've determined that this node is not worth your time. It's not worth the points, really, in my opinion. It's really hard to justify this, as if you're not running 2 swords, it's not worth your time. Now, Crimson Shroud, this isn't worth it for us specifically because we are not utilizing Synchronized Strike for damage so that we can use it for utility. So we can get Crimson Shroud stacks from our actual ability here, so that we don't have to use them on the tree, so we don't have to spend points here. Pretty much what they do is they just give us bleed chance per stack, and makes it so that we take less damage over time. Now, after that, we have 6 points into dodge rating and increased damage while at full health. It's really good when you have a lot of dodge. And then of course we have 1 point into Flash of Steel, so we can move up to Weapons of Choice. This is the most powerful node in the entirety of Blade Dancer, as its utility is insane. Because the way it works is it will kind of change what it does depending on what combo you have on your main and offhand. So for instance, I am running an axe and a sword, meaning I have a bleed chance of 150%. That's a lot of bleed chance, and that affects both my attacks and my shurikens, which is very strong, as it allows us to do a lot of bleed damage in a very short amount of time. Now for the other nodes up here, for my build specifically, I have not really found a reason to run these yet. So for instance, the perfection nodes would be a lot stronger if we had a lot more dodge, but as you can tell, we're lacking a little bit on dodge. Obviously though, Shroud of Dusk makes up for it, and a lot of other things makes up for it. But yeah, that's pretty much how you want to level this build when it comes to the skill trees. So let's talk about the skills themselves and explain why I take what I do. So for instance, we have shurikens here. So this is the main start of the build, obviously the thing that clears everything for us. So we take 3 points into physical penetration because that applies to the bleeds that are applied by shurikens, which is very strong. So it's pretty much a 36% more damage multiplier to our bleeds. We only take 1 point here, sadly, but as you can tell on our sheet here, we have plenty of bleed chance to go around, so we're not going to miss 40% chance. Then we move 1 point into Fan of Blades, so we get additional shurikens, additional projectiles, and then we get Throwing Star, as it allows us to shoot in an AoE. Now, then we grab Ethereal Blades, as it allows us to gives us a piercing chance, so that our projectiles pierce through enemies and clear a lot more smoothly. Then we have Scintillant Steel, which minus mana cost, obviously, so that we can get this all the way down to 0 for obvious reasons. Then we take 3 nodes here for speed and range, so that our things go off screen and can actually off screen a lot of mobs. Then of course we take 3 points travel. Obviously the attack speed is good, but 3 points travel into Thin Shuriken, so we get an extra additional 2 projectiles, and that's it for shurikens. For this specific build, there's a lot of ways you can build shurikens, by the way. It's the BV version where you have like the things running around you, and then of course you have the chakram version, you have the single target version. You have a lot of versions you could run with this build, but this is the one that I came up with. Now of course we have the mighty smoke bomb here, one of the the second best skill in the arsenal of Rogue that isn't the decoy, but I don't count the decoy right now because it's kind of a meme, because it's probably going to get nerfed. Now, so for the smoke bomb, we have 2 points travel into the duration here, 1 point travel here because the throwing attack damage does nothing for us. Then we take 4 points into hidden blows. Now, why this is important is so that whenever we are within our smoke cloud here, our shurikens, they deal 200% more chance to bleed, which is very strong, obviously, right? Then of course we take 4 points into Shadow Chance, so that each second it summons a shadow. As you can tell, shadow, shadow, shadow. So usually what we end up doing is we throw down a smoke bomb, sit inside of it, and kind of spam our key, and we get a bunch of extra projectiles thanks to the smoke cloud. Pretty much what we do. It's for damage, right? In a pack. And then of course we take 1 point here into Shroud in Darkness. We get some Glancing Blow and some dodge rating, buff duration for only 2 seconds. But then we, the Dust Shroud, obviously what this is, right? It stacks. So whenever we're sitting in it, we gain Dust Shroud stacks. As you can tell, we gain dodge and we gain our Glancing Blow modifier. So it's very strong for defenses as well, makes up for the fact that we have to sit in it to deal more damage. And of course more Dust Shroud frequency, so you get more. Then we take 1 point travel, 2 points travel here, so that we can get to Moonlight Bomb, so that we get 2 Silver Shrouds. Don't worry about the Silver Shrouds, we're mainly utilizing it so that we get the dodge next attack. Now that's pretty much it for that skill. Then we have shift, one of the like I think this is the strongest rogue skill by far. This is amazing. It has so much utility. It is even better than transplant, especially since the transplant nerfs. But so we take 3 points here into the healing amount because I like healing, and healing point per point of dexterity. I'm hoping to be stacking dex, so we're getting like 100 HP every single time we dash, including other modifiers, which we'll talk about in a second. We take 1 point into Unseen Strike as it is a melee hit so that we get more bleeds and such and proc other things as well. Then of course 4 points into Swift Recovery so that whenever we use it, because Shift has a lot of mana, so this makes it so it's pretty much 0 mana. Now, then, of course, we have Momentum, which is very strong. One of the reasons why this is very strong is it gives us 50% movement speed that is independent from haste for a few seconds, which is very strong when trying to get the fuck out of somewhere. Very, very strong. And of course, we get the 1 Shadow so that we can, obviously do more damage. Our ethereal knives, and of course we have Shadow Slip. And Vulnerability while shifting works much like the lunge node, where it makes it so that we do not take damage while we are lunging. Then of course for the last few nodes we have Elusive. You have additional dodge chance per point of dexterity for 1 second after shifting, so that we gain 150 per point of dex. So as you can tell, our dodge is 671. I dash is at 12,000. It's pretty much meaning that we're invulnerable for about a second after, pretty much around there. Like, it's kind of like diminishing returns, but that's a different story. But that's pretty much it for shift. Very strong. And of course we moved in Synchronized Strike, another strong rogue skill, as you can tell. Strong rogue skills. Now why we're utilizing this is that whenever we utilize Synchronized Strike, we get extra clones here, which will use our stuff. So usually our combo is to Synchronized Strike and then utilize our dash, and then what happens is we pretty much get a screen-wide AoE of projectiles in a very nice little pattern, as it allows us to clear Monoliths very fast, especially when I get a lot more damage. Now, that's not the only reason. We take 2 points travel here, 4 points travel here, so that the Synchronized Strike, the actual attack itself, has a chance to bleed, which is very strong, as we are a hybrid build, meaning that we can run both kind of attacks. It doesn't matter as long as it's hitting, right? So we get a lot of Fizz, Res, Shred, and then Bleed chance, so it's good on bosses. And of course we get the Crimson Cloud stacks. Now the Crimson Cloud here, Shroud, this just gives us 50% chance to bleed per stack, so we always get 3 of them, so we get a 150% chance to bleed, and then the minus damage over taken, which isn't as strong, but it's still useful. Now, of course, we'll move up here into 1 point into mana efficiency, because we don't care about mana. 5 points into Shadow Rush, so that every single time we utilize it, and there are shadows created within the area of Swift Strike there, L2, I gain that HP back, just flat HP amounts. Then, of course, we have Art of the Blade, which just gives us a flat 25% increased attack and cast speed modifier if we've used Synchronized Strike recently. And that's pretty much it for Synchronized Strike, very obvious. Then of course we have Lethal Mirage. Now Lethal Mirage is, like I said, the skill where you kind of like teleport and you're immune and you do a bunch of damage. Kind of like teleports around, kind of like Master Yi's ultimate from League of Legends. We take 4 points into Weeping Cut so that we get more bleed chance and more bleed effect, which is very strong for us. Then we get 50% physical penetration so that it penetrates through a lot of bullshit. Then we have 1 point into Consuming Darkness as travel, 2 points into Additional Mirages, meaning those are 2 additional attacks, meaning those are 2 additional bleeds we add onto the opponent. And of course we take 2 points here as travel, 3 points into the haste. It's pretty nice to be able to get haste when you exit, and it makes you feel really fast when you dash out of it as well. And of course we get 2 more additional mirages, and that's pretty much our single target in one button. Also our Lord and Savior, as it saved my bacon plenty of times. That's pretty much it for the skills. We can talk about gearing today. Now for idols, it's pretty simple. You just want bleed chance on hit with shurikens, like bleed chance, increased damage while wielding a sword or an axe, bleed chance, bleed chance, damage. Obviously pretty simple. Just bleed chance and damage. That's all you really want. And of course, for our weapons, just bleed chance and damage. You can actually run percentage dodge on the sword, which is very strong for us as it gives us another place to put our percentage dodge. Then we can put our chill and slow on hit on this as well, so that when we're in the arena, we can chill and slow mobs so that they can't catch up to us. And of course, we run verdant. This is just res. We want the cooldown recovery speed because the faster that lethal Mirage is off cooldown, the better. And of course we have Bleeding Heart, as I realized early in the build that I needed leech, and the only way to get a decent amount of leech for this kind of build and this kind of setup would be to just simply gamble for a Bleeding Heart. It took about 100k gold. It wasn't that bad. It's a very strong leech because it's global leech and works for your damage over time as well, which works very strong when we're bleeding everything. There's a lot of other interactions, but I won't bore you with them. And of course, for our belt, we just want the dodge potion affix so that, we get a little bit more dodge. As you can tell, I'm missing a little bit because it's SSF. Then on the rings, all you need is the -3 to mana cost. Obviously, get whatever else you can on them. And of course, the -3 mana cost. Then for gloves, you want throwing attack speed, vitality, mainly just throwing attack speed. Everything else is just your reses and stuff. And of course, boots, movement speed, duh. And then this just random stats. This is a pretty SSF friendly build, as you can tell. Things to look out for. Well, so I did think about utilizing an undisputed, but it was worded properly in the way where we have to hit stuff with a melee attack. Now, we do have melee attacks because we have Synchronized Strike, we have Dash, we have this as well. We have melee attacks. Now, obviously, I don't know if that would be good enough to run it or not. Obviously run undisputed. Obviously, that would boost our single target significantly, as we would go up to 200% increased damage from one axe. So I would probably end up using the undisputed anyways for single target purposes, because that's where it would shine. And of course, sword, there's not really much you can change here. It's just a stat stick. That's pretty much it for the gearing so far. There's not really much else you'd want, as everything else is kind of useless for you, specifically this kind of build. That's pretty much it for the gearing. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.